Hey guys, welcome back to more relationship family drama stories. In this video, OP's family threw him away like garbage when he was a child and kicked him out. He ended up homeless. However, years later, he got revenge. The first one is titled, "Family disowned me and threw me away like garbage." So my parents were never shy about their resentment towards me. They had me fresh out of high school and only stayed together to raise me. My mom was absent for most of my childhood since she was always out partying with her friends while my father worked to earn money. When I was 7, they finally decided to settle down together and had my baby brother Jake. Afterwards, they put all their attention on Jake. Jake was showered with gifts and attention from my parents and grew up to be a spoiled brat. For example, if my mother denied him anything, he would throw tantrums, he would scream at her and would even hit her, after my mother would follow his demands and he faced no punishment for his outbursts. I was jealous of my parents' treatment of my brother, but I knew that saying anything would get me in trouble, so I kept quiet and learned to be independent. In my sophomore year of high school, I got a job at a local retail store. I wanted to save up for a car. I tried to keep the job a secret from my parents, but a neighbor saw me working there and mentioned it to my father. They were mad that I had kept the job a secret and told me that I had to pay rent at the house since I had a job. I thought it was stupid to make your child pay rent, but then again, I didn't complain because I knew it would even get me in more trouble. I started paying them around $500 a month for rent, which honestly was not that bad. It made saving up for the car much more difficult, but they could have taken a lot more. What always pissed me off was how they expected me to always treat my brother through things. Everything I did, he had to do as well. If I got food, he would have to get food. If I bought something for myself, I would have to buy something too. And if I didn't, he would throw his usual tantrums, and I felt too annoyed to want to deal with it, so I gave in. The final straw came during Christmas. Of course, my family expected me to buy gifts. I bought my mom a necklace she mentioned she liked while we were at the mall, a watch for my father, and a toy set for my brother. On Christmas morning, my brother opened the gift I bought him and started crying because I had gotten the wrong set. My parents insisted on me getting the correct set for my brother. I agreed at first, but when my brother said he didn't want to return the wrong set, I changed my mind. I'd usually give in to my family's demands, but I was so angry about my brother's behavior that I refused. After some arguing, the conversation ended and I assumed that was it. Well, the next day, I went to my drawer to check on the money I had saved for my car. I kept most of it in an unlabeled envelope under all my socks. At this point, I had around $3,000 saved up for my car. It was not a lot, but every cent counted, but when I checked, all the money was gone. I searched my room thinking I had forgotten it, but after ransacking it, I couldn't find it. I did not think anyone in my house would take it since I didn't tell them that I was saving up money in the first place. I came downstairs and found my brother playing with a brand new toy set different from the one I had bought him. Of course, I got suspicious, so I confronted my mom about it. At first she denied it, but when I kept pressing her, she finally admitted that she had taken the money from me to pay for the toy set. The toy set was only $500, so I asked her where the rest of the money went. She got defensive, claiming that she had a right to my money as my mother and that I should not be hiding money from my parents. We had a huge argument about it, and I said I had rights to my hard-earned money. She kept repeating her mantra about children's duties to their parents. Somehow I got on the topic of Jake's childhood versus my own, and honestly, I think I brought it up out of spite and anger from all the years of neglect. In hindsight, it was not the smartest thing to do. She got so angry that I was pointing out her favoritism that she said, "If you hate it here so much, then get out." I thought she was joking at first, but then she stormed into my room, started packing away my things into a suitcase. I tried telling her to stop, but she did not listen. She literally threw the suitcase into the front yard and locked me out of the house. At first I pounded on the door begging my mom to let me back in. After a while though, I stopped because it was obvious she was not gonna let me back in. I waited for my dad to come home from work, but when I tried getting in and explaining myself to him, he just pushed me out and said that I deserved this because I had been disrespectful to my mother and told me not to bother coming back again. This meant I was officially homeless now. I slept in the yard that night because I didn't want to wander when it was dark outside. In the morning I decided that there was no use in trying to convince my parents otherwise. For the first week I had to wander. I slept anywhere I could, alleyways, bus stops, etc. I tried to panhandle and ask for help, but nobody paid me any attention. After the first week I decided to walk to my workplace since I was good friends with a lot of the older employees. I found my manager and told her what had happened. She was this sweet middle-aged lady whose kids had all grown up and were out of the house by then. She offered me a place to stay for as long as I needed. I owe the life I have today to that woman, and I think about her every day. I worked hard to get my diploma, juggling school and my job, and at times I had to sacrifice my grades and attendance for work, but in the end it was all worth it. I graduated with a decent enough GPA to get into a good university in my area and had enough work experience throughout high school and college to land a good job in a different city for a construction company. From there, I started climbing the ranks, and now I am in a position that earns me 6 figures a year. I'm not a millionaire, but I enjoy a comfortable lifestyle with the money I make. A few weeks ago, I received a message on Facebook from an account I did not recognize. When I checked to see who it was, I realized it was Jake. I didn't believe it at first, but after scrolling through his posts, I confirmed it was him. He wanted to catch up over coffee and was in the area. I had not talked to him since I got kicked out, and even though some part of me was still angry at what happened, I knew it was not really his fault, so I agreed. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment and started catching up. I told him about what I had gone through after I got kicked out, and he seemed genuinely apologetic. Jake started talking about his wife and how our parents were doing. He started talking about the financial issues my family was having. To simplify, my brother and father attempted a startup, but they lost all their money due to poor investments. Now the house was on the line, and my parents had nowhere else to go if they lost the place. Jake admitted that was the reason why he wanted to meet up in the first place, because he knew I had the money to help them. The moment he said that, I stormed off. That night I got a storm of messages from Jake. He begged me to reconsider. He said that family came first and to let bygones be bygones. I did not reply to any of those messages. As the days went on, I kept getting more and more messages. They ranged from guilt-tripping to angry and vice versa. But then one night I heard someone pounding at my door. It was my parents. I opened the door but kept the chain on so they couldn't force their way in. My mother started gushing about how I had grown into such a decent young man. I cut her off and asked them what they were doing here. My father rehashed the situation Jake had told me, and I told them my answer was no, and if they did not leave that I would call the police. My mother's demeanor quickly changed after that. She got angry and started calling me a horrible son and an ungrateful brat, saying that I should help my family in times of need. I did not have any of it. I told them that it was laughable how they came crawling back to me after kicking me out, and that all my success was because of my hard work and effort, no thanks to them. I said that I didn't care what happened to their home, and that now they would know how I felt when they kicked me out. That last bit was probably harsh, but at that moment I did not care. They finally left when I threatened to call the cops again. Jake messaged me one last time a few days ago saying that the house was taken and now our parents are forced to live with him and his wife in their tight apartment. I honestly felt bad for a little bit, but after talking it out with some of my close friends, I realized that it was not my obligation to take care of them after the way they treated me. I worked hard to get where I am today, and because they had no part in that, they did not deserve a cent of my money. Whatever happens to them now is not my problem, not my circus, not my monkeys. And guys, before we continue to the next story, I want to read a comment that I saw in the comment section of the original story we just read. Basically, in this comment, someone is telling their own story because that person can relate to OP, and the story is so sad but also so satisfying in the end that I just have to share it with you. It starts like this. First, I want to say thank you for sharing your story. It's taken me 3 attempts to finish reading it because I kept breaking down. The way you describe your family dynamics hit so close to home that I had to step away several times. I am so sorry for what you went through, but also incredibly proud of how you have handled everything. Your post inspired me to finally share my own story. So I've been lurking in this sub for months, but I've never had the courage to post until now. Apologies in advance for the wall of text, but I need to get this out. So I grew up in what looked like a picture-perfect middle-class family from the outside. My dad who worked in insurance, mom who was a part-time teacher, and my 2 younger brothers. We lived in a nice suburban neighborhood, went to church on Sundays and had family dinners most nights. My parents were respected in the community and everyone thought they were these amazing, generous people. Classic pillar of the community types. But behind closed doors, it was a completely different story. My dad had these unpredictable rage episodes that would come out of nowhere. One minute he would be helping me with homework, the next one he would be screaming because I had done something wrong. Something like use the wrong kind of pencil or take too long to answer a question. I never knew what would set him off. When I was 8, I spilled a glass of juice at dinner. He grabbed me by the arm so hard it left finger-shaped bruises, dragged me to my room and locked me in there for the entire weekend. No food except a slice of bread and water that my mom snuck in when he was not looking. I remember sitting in the dark, terrified to even go to the bathroom because the floorboards creaked. "You need to learn consequences," he told me through the door. "This is what happens to ungrateful children." My mom was no better though, just different. While my dad was explosive, my mom was this master of emotional manipulation. She would give me the silent treatment for days if I did something she did not like. Once when I was 13, I got a B+ on a math test and she did not speak to me for an entire week. She would walk right past me like I was invisible, and when I asked her why she was ignoring me, she said, "I'm just so disappointed I cannot even look at you right now. The miller's daughter got straight A's again. I guess they just wanted success more than we did." She would also tell me things like, "No one will ever love you if you keep acting this way," or "You're the reason your father gets so angry." And I grew up believing I was fundamentally flawed and unlovable. The worst part was that my brothers were treated completely differently. They could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. They got new clothes, the latest video games, and actual birthday parties, while I was lucky if my parents even remembered my birthday. When I asked why they got special treatment, my mom would say, "They don't cause problems like you do." I became the family scapegoat for everything. If something went wrong, well, it was automatically my fault. My dad got passed over for a promotion. Guess what? Somehow it was my fault because I was draining his energy at home. My mom had a headache. It was of course because I stressed her out with my attitude. By high school I was severely depressed and anxious, but I didn't even know it was not normal to feel that way. I just thought I was broken. I had this constant knot in my stomach and would have panic attacks in the bathroom at school. I did not have many friends because I was not allowed to go to social events or have people over. "Why would anyone want to be friends with you anyway?" my mom would say. I still remember the day I realized not all families were like mine. I was 16 and at my friend Kelsey's house working on a school project. Her mom came home from work and Kelsey accidentally knocked over a vase while getting up to greet her. I froze, waiting for the explosion of rage that was sure to come. Instead though, Kelsey's mom just laughed and said, "Whoops, let's clean that up. Are you girls hungry? I can order pizza." I was so confused. Where was the yelling? The punishment? The days of silent treatment. That night I cried myself to sleep because I finally understood how messed up my home life was. When I got accepted to college, it was my ticket out. I chose a school 3 states away and got enough scholarships and financial aid to cover most costs. My parents were furious, not because they had missed me, but because they were losing control. "You will fail within a semester," my dad predicted. "And don't come crying to us when you do." My mom was more subtle. "It is selfish of you to leave when the family needs you here," she said. "I guess you never really loved us." Well, I left anyway, and those 4 years of college were transformative. I was still a mess, jumping at loud noises, apologizing constantly, and expecting everyone to suddenly hate me for the smallest mistakes. All in all though, I was free. I made real friends who were kind and supportive to me. I saw a therapist through the University Health Center who first mentioned the words emotional abuse and narcissistic parents. After graduation, I made the mistake of moving back to my hometown. I could not afford to live anywhere else and I thought maybe things would be different now that I was an adult, but they weren't. One night, about 6 months after moving back, I came home 20 minutes late from work because of traffic and my dad was waiting at the door. "Where the hell have you been?" he demanded. "There was an accident on the highway, I'm sorry." "Don't give me excuses. You think you can just disrespect us like this? Living in our house, eating our food, and you cannot even be bothered to come home on time?" I was 22 years old at the time, paying them rent, buying my own food, and he was treating me like I was 12 again. And then something in me finally snapped. "I'm an adult," I said quietly. "I shouldn't have to report my every movement to you." The look on his face was terrifying. He got right up in my face and said, "As long as you live under my roof, you are nothing, you understand me? Nothing." My mom stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching. She didn't say a word. She never did when he got like this. That night I made a plan. I applied for jobs in cities far away. I saved every penny I could. I opened a new bank account they didn't know about, and 6 weeks later I got a job offer in Seattle. I was living in Ohio at the time. It did not pay much, but it was enough to share an apartment with roommates. I did not tell my parents that I was leaving. I waited until they were at a church function, packed everything I could fit in my car, and left a note on the kitchen table. I blocked their numbers before they even got home. The aftermath was what you would expect. They enlisted extended family to track me down. My aunt called me at work. I don't know how she got the number to tell me what terrible pain I was causing my parents. My brother texted that I was killing mom with my selfishness. What surprised me most was how they rewrote history. According to them, they had given me everything and I was supposedly an ungrateful child who abandoned them. They genuinely seemed to believe this version of events. When my grandmother reached out, she genuinely asked, "Why would you leave when they've sacrificed so much for you?" It was like I was taking crazy pills. Had everyone forgotten the locked bedrooms, the bruises, the constant belittling, or had they never known? 3 months after I left, I got a letter from my dad. It was not an apology, it was 8 pages of everything I'd ever done wrong since childhood, with the conclusion that he would forgive me if I came home immediately and made things right. I burned the letter and finally changed my phone number. It has been 6 years since I went no contact. In that time, I've built a life I've never thought possible. I found a job I love in marketing. I met my now husband, who is kind and gentle and has shown me what love is supposed to look like. We have a dog named Beans, who has never heard a raised voice in her life. I'm still in therapy, working through the damage of my childhood. Last year, my youngest brother found me on Instagram. He's 21 now, old enough to understand. We met for coffee when he visited Seattle, and he told me that after I left, things got even worse for a while. My parents were furious that they had no one to direct their rage at anymore, and eventually my brother started noticing the patterns too. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," he said. "I didn't see it back then because they never treated me the way they treated you, but I see it now." That validation meant everything. He has limited contact with them now too, though he has not cut them off completely. The road to healing is not linear. I still have nightmares. I still flinch sometimes when my husband reaches to hug me too quickly. I still struggle with feeling worthy of love and kindness, but I'm getting better. When I read your story about standing up to your family, especially the confrontation you described with your mom at the family dinner, I felt such a surge of pride for you. That courage to stand your ground in the face of people who have hurt you so deeply is incredible. Like you, I've had to deal with flying monkeys and family members who think I should just forgive and forget because they are family. The "but they're your parents" argument makes me want to scream. Being a parent is more than just biology. It's about love, protection and nurturing, none of which our parents provided. I want you to know that the guilt does fade with time. The first year of no contact was the hardest. All those birthdays and holidays and random Tuesday nights when I would question if I was the monster, they always said I was. But it gets better, I promise. OP, thank you again for sharing your story. It is posts like yours that help others feel less alone in their experiences. I hope you continue to stand strong in your boundaries. You deserve peace and happiness, and sometimes that means leaving behind the people who should have loved you the most. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I had a rich boss once that was only rich because of the wealth from his grandparents. The guy was a complete and utter moron. He made nonsensical financial decisions and burned through hundreds of thousands of dollars in completely avoidable mistakes. But because he had money from his ancestors, he just shrugged off these losses and continued. He had also only but the faintest idea about his company or how to lead or keep employees. I was basically keeping the company together. As such, I was the naysayer that blocked 90% of his stupid plans and decisions. Due to my negativity, I got fired. The guy was also arrogant as hell because he had a master's and PhD in economics. I thought, no way in hell can this guy have a master's/PhD, he is so damn stupid. So I searched for his master's and PhD thesis, went to the university library, and what a surprise, on the second page of his master thesis I found a text passage without citation. After like 40 minutes, I found another 10 passages he copied without citation. I spent only some 20 minutes examining his PhD thesis and found already 2 cases. I made pictures of the text passages he copied and the books from where he took them and wrote an anonymous email to the university. A year later, he lost both his master's and PhD because of his plagiarism. I know this from people that still work with him because he exploded. The university just thanked me but told me that they cannot provide further information due to data protection laws. So either he had a ghostwriter write it for him who didn't care, or he just copied and thought he would never be caught. He wrote both of these in the 80s. Chances are many master's and PhD theses from these times are plagiarized because there were less possibilities to check. After all, imagine it's 1985 and you are at the University of Chicago, and during a trip to Miami, you visit the library and find a thesis there that you copy from. If you change the title, there's almost a zero chance that you will ever be caught. So if you have stupid bosses and people around you with a degree that are older and did you wrong, it might be worth your time to check their thesis. And yeah, ripe stars, this is actually an issue in some countries, especially where I'm from in Europe. In the past, I think it hasn't happened too recently, but a few years ago there were many scandals where people actually found out that famous politicians plagiarized their thesis. Let me tell you, not a good look if you are a politician. Anyway, the next one is the title story, and it starts like this. So my name is Keith and I want to share a story with you about a male senior Karen, or rather Ken, who really had it in for me. Even today, I have no idea what his problem was. I think he must have been jealous that I was actively doing something in the community and showing up. Also, it seems like he does not like Polish people, my mom is Polish, despite me being more British than him. Another part of me believes that he was just a spiteful, sour old goat. Jealousy can be an ugly monster to carry around with you. I've been jealous plenty of times in my life, but I always try to use that jealousy to better myself rather than have it turn me into a spiteful person. But there are some people out there that are not so in control of their emotions, and this Ken was definitely one of them. So I run a rather successful business repurposing swarf. And for those who don't know, swarf is the excess material trimmed away during the turning and milling process. It all gets gathered up, smelted back into ingots and bars, and then sold on. Nothing gets wasted, and ever since the world turned its attention to managing waste a little more, my business has been booming. I got a nice fancy house, a nice fancy car, and a member to some pretty fancy clubs. Like I said before, when I get jealous of what someone else has, I just work hard until I am able to gain the thing I am jealous of. Recently though, as I'm getting older, I decided that it was time to retire early so that I can sit back and enjoy my hard-earned gains. My wife had always liked the idea of living by the sea, so I bought an apartment on the south coast of England, near the very beautiful Jurassic Coast. It was meant to be a time where me and the wife could just relax and enjoy life, now that the kids had moved on with their own lives and creating families of their own. For the first few weeks, things were going okay, and then I met one of the neighbors who lived just below me. I didn't so much as meet him as get a dirty look, as I was pulling the weekly shopping from the back of my car. The car in question was a pretty expensive electric vehicle, around $75,000 for all you Americans out there, and the whole reason we moved into the building we did was because it had dedicated charging spots right out the front of the building, which made life super convenient in a lot of ways. This only brought up a big problem though. Those from the UK will definitely understand this, but we Brits can get very territorial over parking spaces. I don't know what it is about living on a small island and being protective of our space, but parking can bring out the ugliness in people worse than even jealousy. So when Ken saw me, a brand new resident, parking in the most prestigious of all parking spaces, the one directly outside the entrance of the building, no doubt he was thinking, why does this upstart get the best spot? Want to know the worst thing? He didn't even bloody drive. So from that first meeting on, Ken had it in for me and would go out of their way just to interfere with me and what I was doing. There was this one time, one lovely lazy Sunday, when me and the wife were pottering about the apartment, getting everything to feel homely, when we hear a thundering at the door. At first I thought something was wrong, but there was no fire alarm or anything, so I answered the door expecting to see police or something. But it was Ken. Hey, you're not allowed to have plants out in the hallway. You stupid Pollacks never follow rules. How about you go back to your asshole country? He spit out, referring to the two potted bay leaf trees I had either side of my door. Taken aside his usual racist, idiotic remarks, this confused me as I was pretty sure there was nothing in the residency agreement about it, but not wanting to escalate any sort of confrontation, I simply told him I would sort it out. What really twisted my melon though was that he lived on the floor below me, so he had to come up to my floor with the specific intention to get me riled up. I just let it slide and carried on about my day. I did not do anything about the plants out in the hallway. The residency agreement definitely didn't say that I couldn't have them, so I left them. It didn't end there though. Ken was constantly harassing me about what I was doing, looking for any excuse to try and get one up on me, proving that he was better than me for whatever reason. To this day, I don't understand what his problem with me was, and I can only think that he didn't like the fact that I was parking right outside the entrance, which I needed to do in order to use the chargers. If I had a standard petrol or diesel car, I would have happily parked somewhere else. Well, it came to the point where I was getting so frustrated with Ken's constant rules lawyering that I decided to do something about it. Pretty much all the rules he was trying to enforce were made up or taken out of context. The problem was that there was no one I could turn to, there was no housing association or anything, no ruling body, just a building manager who worked for the estate agents, and his only concern was the building and not the people in it. That was about the time I found details about running a residents association. It is basically an organization that is operated by the residents directly and aims to improve the quality of the residence in which we reside. I definitely thought our residence needed improving. The quality was not what I was expecting, namely the Ken from downstairs was ruining the zeitgeist. With a residency association in place, I could finally get Ken off my back, as he would not be able to make any more comments about how I was doing things and making up rules just to get at me. Needless to say, Ken did not like that very much at all. The rest of the residents were well on board though. I remember when I was putting up the flyers to announce the formation of the association, Ken comes right up to me, right into my face like he was trying to kiss me, and says, "You are new here, so I suggest you stop making so much noise," or something like that. He actually just came right up at me and threatened me. I felt like I was in a Guy Ritchie movie or something. I of course ignored him and carried on with implementing the residency association. I thought things were going smoothly. Ken had backed off a little now that he was no longer the sheriff of the building, and I could finally enjoy my early retirement. Well, that was until I came out one morning to find three rather large scratches down the side of my expensive electric car. It was like Edward Scissorhands buried his claws in my beautiful car. The scratches were ridiculous. I knew who had done it instantly, I just needed proof, and luckily for me, there is CCTV right outside the door, and now being a member of the Residency Association, I had the phone number of the security agency we work with. With the very clear evidence, I took Ken to court and hopefully finally get him to back off of me and leave me alone. The court case was not as easy as I thought it was gonna be, even with the very clear CCTV footage, as Ken insisted that he did not scratch the car. He even said on record that he never lies, he has never told a lie in his life, and that the CCTV footage only showed him seeing the scratches on the car and running his fingers along them to feel them. Which is weird in itself. The nerve of this guy had me stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing in the middle of court from a guy who swore that he would tell the truth. He had no evidence to clear his name, no alibi, and more than enough just cause. Even when the court was able to identify the flash of keys being stuffed back into his pocket once the deed was done, he did not change his story. Luckily for me, the judge was a sane woman, and Ken ended up with a fine of over £1,000 to pay for damages. It was glorious justice. I've not seen Ken since, and I think he must have moved away or kept himself locked away in his apartment. He certainly never shows up for the association meetings. And the next one is titled, "Never Block My Driveway." And by the way, if you have enjoyed the story so far, I would very much appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and maybe even leave a comment, because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much. So I live next to a school, and I've had parents back up into my driveway to wait for their children. If I'm not going anywhere, I don't mind, no harm, no foul. One day though, I came home to find a woman in my driveway. I got out of my car and asked her to please pull out for a second so I could pull in, and then you can back up where you were. She said, "It'll only be a few minutes." I said, "Ma'am, I live here and I would like to get into my garage." Because it's a narrow street and parents are now parked on both sides, the street access is now really narrow and only one car can get by at a time. I told her that I cannot wait here a few minutes because I am blocking traffic. "We'll be moving in a bit." I said, "Okay, no, you won't be." I then parked perpendicular to her vehicle, blocking my own driveway and her vehicle. As I walked by, I told her I really have to use the bathroom and have stomach cramps. "You're welcome to call the police if you like, I'll be out in a bit." The look on her face after she realized what was happening was priceless. A few minutes later, I could hear honking. A few more minutes later, I hear honking and my doorbell ringing. Only because I saw it was a child ringing on my doorbell, I answered. "I'll be out in a minute, I'm washing my hands." I could hear the little boy screaming to his mom, I assume, "He says he's washing his hands." By the time I came out, a few more minutes later, all the vehicles and students were gone. I very slowly walked past her car, avoiding eye contact, and got into my car. I adjusted the mirror, moved the car seat forward, and then back slowly, started the car and moved my car forward slowly. All I heard was the tires screeching and the car horn honking as she left. Her windows were rolled up, so I can only assume the little boy got an earful of nice words as she was leaving. My neighbors were wondering what was going on with all the honking. When I explained, they said, "Oh yeah, that's what we kinda figured." And yeah, Ripe Stars, I'm curious, have you ever had any awful entitled people parking on your property without permission? Especially entitled parents? Let us know in the comments, I would love to hear about it. Either way, the next one is a pricing petty revenge story. So I was at Home Depot earlier today making a quick run for some supplies for my current home renovation. I was picking up cement board and some various materials to trench power to a breakfast counter that'll be installed in our kitchen. I had one of the big wallboard carts that I was cruising around with, being careful and cautious of others the whole time, so the trip was a bit frustrating as there is a lot of stopping and waiting to allow crowds to pass so I can safely maneuver without bumping into anyone or anything. It's not a big deal and it was to be expected, but I'm only mentioning this part to set the stage that by the end of my 30-minute endeavor, that could have been much quicker had I not needed this cart. I may have been in a different mindset by the time I got to the checkout, so I have all my supplies and just need the cement board now, so I head on over to the wallboard aisle. Funnily enough, it's totally chaotic. There is a middle-aged guy, his elderly father, and late 20-something son who were loading sheetrock in a way that was taking the whole width of the aisle, so I had to go down another aisle to get around them. I would usually just bring my cart up against a stack and pull off the amount I need. It's quite quick with multiple hands. Anyway, additionally, they had pulled 2 sheets down and let them land on a flatbed cart, which doesn't work, it simply won't fit. They had left that out in the middle of the aisle to get the more appropriate cart apparently. I carefully moved the flatbed off to the side so it's out of the way of the aisle and get to work with loading the cement board. I have a sheet in my hand and the youngest of the crew decides that he needs to get somewhere quick and awkwardly walks really close behind me, making it so that I cannot maneuver the sheet onto my cart. No biggie, I just hold it awkwardly until he passes, which just another oddity that further set the stage for me. I finally finish and head over to the pro checkout. I get over there and there's 2 guys being wrung out with a cart. The employee checking them out appears kind of newish. He's a younger guy that seemed to be struggling with one of their items or something, but I was not gonna try and haul my cart full of 12 sheets of cement board over to a regular checkout. It was not a big deal. So I wait patiently and these guys finally go to swipe their cart, and this is where things get spicy. The dream team from the wallboard aisle starts walking up with a large cart of drywall they were struggling to work through in the aisle along with some additional items. The middle-aged guy awkwardly walks in front of me and takes a hold of the cart that was with the guys at checkout, and it all clicks. That cart did not belong to the 2 guys at checkout. The older guy brings his cart loaded with 12 sheets of sheetrock and passively aggressively moves diagonally in front of me to cut me off. I would like to think that I'm a nice guy, but I was over it at this point. The middle-aged guy looks me in the eyes and I say, "Man, I like your style. I was not aware we can reserve spots in line at the pro checkout. I feel dumb having just stood here for 5 minutes." He shrugs and says, "I was just here, I had to get more things." I shook my head and let it go. The employee then starts checking them out and goes through the first cart. He gets to the sheetrock and asks, "How many is that? 6? And the old guy immediately says, "Yes, 6. Here's the thing with sheetrock, it's always bought in bulk 99% of the time and it's transported in pairs to keep it from easily snapping in transit. If you need to buy one, you have to rip the tier strips off that bind them together, but they are rung up individually. I let the employee get through the rest of the items and hit the total button so they could see what it came out to and then immediately pounced. "Excuse me, sir." They pause and the cashier turns to me. "You're ringing out only 6 sheets of drywall, but there's actually 12 here." The old guy snaps at me. "They are sold in pairs." I look at him and respond, "No sir, you're mistaken. I can show you on the app that they are definitely sold individually and the cashier can get confirmation of it from his supervisor if needed." The middle-aged guy looks at me again. I give him a big smile and say, "I'm sure it's an honest mistake, but I'm glad I was here to help fix it." The cashier adjusts his mistake and the bill goes up about $80. I of course gave them a smile as they left. And yeah, ripe stuff, petty revenge can just be so satisfying without really being malicious or bad for any party involved, but rest assured, someone will definitely learn his lesson. If you've ever enacted petty revenge upon someone in your life, please let us know about it in the comments because I would love to hear your petty revenge stories. And the next one is a malicious compliance story. This will be a rather basic one, but it still warms my heart. So I used to work in a trade shop run by a great boss everyone got along great with. Except for one of the department heads. Let's call them B. For reasons unrelated to this story, the boss decided to sell the shop to B, and in the wake the majority of the staff quits within months, leaving us understaffed. I naively decided to stick it out and assumed that B would hire people to fill the empty positions, but they don't. We go from a 15-person trade shop down to a 5-person within a year, and that includes the 6 people who turned over. One of the many issues that developed, and there were many, was B's inability to schedule or think through actions to the end and plan ahead. While I worked there, the 2 years with boss, I often came in 10 to 15 minutes early due to the nature of my commute. I would come in, unload my stuff, make some coffee, small talk with my coworkers, shoot the crap with my boss, but we never really started work until everyone's scheduled start time. When B took over, the moment you stepped into the stop, B immediately started to bark orders at you, regardless if you were in building 15 to 20 minutes early. Mostly it's because B was in a rush to get something done they just remembered. When I, the now most senior person left at the shop from the old regime, would point out that we technically were not on the clock yet for another 15 to 20 minutes and I want to make coffee, B would just snap at you telling to do it now because so-and-so is coming right at opening. So I started to wait in my car, bring in my coffee from home and would only walk in the door as the last minute was changing. I was technically never late to work and was ready to work the moment I stepped through the door. I don't know if B caught on, but the rest of my staff did and followed suit, since I told them to. For the remaining months I lasted there, all my coworkers would still often show up early to work, but all wait in the vehicles. At some point one of them had a minivan and we all partied in there and go in as a group. Anytime a new person joined, because someone walked off, we would also warn them of what would happen. It's been several years since I worked there, I don't know any of the current staff beside B, I happened to be doing an on-site install nearby at the time. That shop would open in and looked over into the parking lot in front of the shop. Like clockwork, a minute before the shop was scheduled to open, about 6 people got out of their vehicles and headed in. I may not work there anymore, but it's nice to see my resistance still exists. And the last one is a funny story from r/I don't work here lady to end the video on a good note. It is titled, "Written up for not seating someone at Chili's." So I worked for CompUSA in 1999. The uniform matched Chili's at the time, khakis and a red polo. As the Chili's was directly across from our store, many of us ate there at lunch. So sitting at the bar area, running through my workday to that point, I wind up with the store manager walking up to my table asking, "What do you think I'm doing?" And a guy standing nearby with his arms crossed looking pissed. I looked at him and said, "Waiting for my burger?" With a raised eyebrow pointing at my shirt, manager name, "I eat here 3 times a week. You know me and that I don't work for you." The Chili's manager clicked in almost immediately and apologized and then explained to the customer that not everyone wearing a red shirt worked for him. Unfortunately, the offended restaurant patron went across the street and complained to my management that I was abusive. Despite the Chili's manager backing my story, my management wrote me up. So there's a reason why CompUSA went out of business. Moronic management was definitely a part of it. And yeah guys, if you liked the video, please don't forget to leave a like, otherwise I will see you again tomorrow.